The war had raged across the galactic frontier for decades, a clash of species, ideologies, and ambitions that had consumed countless worlds. Humanity, though a relatively young power in the interstellar stage, had fought with a ferocity born of survival instinct and pride. And in this war, rewards were rare, victories even rarer. Corporal Jace Tellman had served on the frontlines for nearly 7 years. He had seen fleets torn apart by plasma storms, watched entire colonies incinerated by alien weaponry, and yet, he had survived. Survival, the generals often reminded him, was its own kind of glory. But glory did not pay the bills, and survival did not grant comfort. It was the spoils of war, the tangible prizes, that made the soldiers envy each other. So when the High Command summoned Jace to a private chamber on the orbital station Elysium 7, he braced himself for a commendation, or perhaps a death sentence disguised as praise. Corporal Tellman, intoned Admiral Ryvar, a rigid figure encased in his ceremonial armor, your actions on the planet Nevoria have been exemplary. You displayed bravery and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. As a token of our gratitude, you will receive a reward of your choosing. Jace raised an eyebrow, half in disbelief. Most soldiers were given medals or promotions, things that sounded impressive in reports but meant little on the ground. But Admiral Ryvar's gaze was unwavering, cold yet oddly calculating. A reward of my choosing? Jace echoed cautiously. What kind of reward are we talking about? The Admiral's hand swept toward a side panel, and a holodisplay flickered to life. A single image appeared, a tall, strikingly beautiful alien woman with deep violet skin, silver hair cascading to her waist, and eyes that glimmered like molten gold. She wore a simple, utilitarian tunic, restrained by faint energy cuffs that pulsed faintly. This, said Ryvar, is Lysera Ven, a captured operative from the Jarath Dominion. She has been reassigned. From this moment forward, she is yours. Jace blinked, caught between disbelief and revulsion. She's a slave? By your terms, yes, the Admiral replied. Consider it a symbol of your victory and a strategic asset. She possesses skills that could prove invaluable, linguistic expertise, tactical knowledge, and proficiency in advanced technologies alien to our forces. Jace looked back at the image, uncertain. He had fought beside humans who had justified all manner of cruelty, but taking another sentient being as a possession? It felt wrong. And yet, the thought of having someone with Lysera's knowledge at his side stirred a complicated mix of curiosity and cautious excitement. Very well, Jace said finally, trying to mask his hesitation. I'll take her. The handover was brief. Lysera was escorted aboard his shuttle, silent and restrained. Her expression betrayed neither fear nor anger, only an unyielding dignity that unsettled him. You are my property, Jace said awkwardly during the long ride to his command post. Lysera's eyes, golden and piercing, met his. Property is a concept. One you may believe in. But it does not define me. Her words unsettled him. She spoke basic, the human lingua franca, perfectly, with a subtle cadence that hinted at a cultured upbringing, unlike most soldiers or slaves he had encountered. Over the next few days, Jace learned quickly that Lysera was far more than a simple assistant. She analyzed battle data with an uncanny speed, identified enemy weak points, and even suggested tactics that had never occurred to him. Every interaction challenged his assumptions. She was not a slave in the way he had imagined, she was intelligent, resourceful, and fiercely independent. One evening, after hours of strategizing over a holographic map of a contested system, Jace found himself speaking more candidly than he intended. Why did they call you a slave? He asked, not sure he wanted the answer. Lysera leaned back, her long fingers brushing her hair behind her ear. Because it is easier for them to strip me of my autonomy than to face the consequences of my abilities. The Jarath call me a traitor. Your people call me a slave. Neither is accurate. Jace nodded slowly. He understood the pragmatism, the necessity of alliances and subjugation in war. But something about Lysera's demeanor, her unwavering poise, made him feel guilty for viewing her as anything less than human. Weeks passed, and the two formed an uneasy partnership. Jace began to trust her instincts, and in turn, Lysra began to respect his courage and moral clarity. They saved countless lives on the battlefield, thwarted ambushes, and turned what had been a demoralized unit into one of the most effective fighting forces in the sector. It was during a reconnaissance mission on the ice planet of Kalis that everything changed. The team was ambushed by a Jarath strike squad, vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Amid the chaos, Jace was gravely wounded, pinned beneath a collapsed structure. He could feel his strength fading, panic clawing at his chest. Lysra fought through the enemy ranks, her movements fluid and precise. She reached him, cutting him free with surgical efficiency. "Move," she commanded, dragging him toward cover. As they huddled in the freezing wind, Jace realized something he hadn't before. In that moment, Lysra wasn't a slave, a reward, or a tool. She was a comrade, a partner, someone who would risk everything for him without hesitation. When they returned to the base, Jace found himself unable to maintain the same cold, detached attitude. He was no longer a soldier with a prize, he was a man with someone he cared about. Lysra, ever perceptive, noticed the shift. "You hesitate," she said one evening as they analyzed recovered Jarath data. "You think of me differently now. Do you believe that makes you weak?" Jace shook his head, finally willing to voice what he had been feeling. "No. It makes me human. And it makes me want to fight for more than survival." She studied him for a long moment, golden eyes softening. "Then perhaps you understand me better than you thought." The real turning point came during the assault on Navoria's orbital defenses. Intelligence suggested that the Jarath were preparing a devastating strike, one that could obliterate the human colony below. Lysra devised a plan. A small, precise strike team could infiltrate the command station and disable the weapons before they fired. Jace led the operation, trusting her implicitly. Together, they navigated the treacherous corridors, bypassed security systems, and faced overwhelming odds. When the final countdown began, it was Lysra's hands on the console, her knowledge of alien tech critical to saving thousands of human lives. In the aftermath, as the station exploded behind them, Jace realized something fundamental. He had been given a reward, a so-called slave, but what he had gained was far more profound. Lysra was no possession. She was an ally, a friend, perhaps even something deeper. Back on Elysium 7, the High Command awaited reports of the mission. Jace expected commendations, perhaps even a promotion. Instead, Admiral Ryvar regarded him with the same cold scrutiny. "You returned with the asset," Ryvar said, his tone flat. "She remains your responsibility. Maintain control." Jace met the Admiral's gaze evenly. "She's not an asset. She's a soldier. And a valued one at that." Ryvar's lips pressed into a thin line. "Be mindful of protocol, Corporal. You are responsible for her behavior." Jace's reply was quiet but firm. "Her behavior is her own." Lysra, standing beside him, said nothing. Her presence alone spoke volumes. They had both survived the war, but in that moment, something had shifted. The dynamic of possession had dissolved. What remained was mutual respect, trust, and an unspoken understanding that neither would ever accept being reduced to a prize again. In the following months, Jace and Lysra continued to fight side by side, their bond growing stronger with each mission. Rumors among the troops began to spread, stories of the human and the alien woman who defied command, not out of rebellion, but out of principle. They were a team, a force to be reckoned with, a living testament to the idea that strength did not come from domination, but from understanding and cooperation. And when the war finally ended, with treaties signed and borders redrawn, Jace and Lysra found themselves standing together on the bridge of a captured Jarath cruiser. The stars stretched out before them, vast and infinite, full of possibilities. Jace glanced at Lysra, her silver hair glinting in the starlight. "You know," he said softly, "I never wanted a reward." "Not really." Lysra smiled, a subtle curve that hinted at warmth beneath her regal composure. "And yet," she replied, "you gained one anyway. Not as a prize, but as a companion. Jace chuckled, the first genuine laugh he had felt in years. Companion. I like that better than a slave. Lysera's golden eyes softened. Then let it be so. We choose our own definitions now. Together, they looked out at the cosmos, survivors of war, equals in trust and respect, ready to explore whatever awaited them among the stars. The galaxy was wide, and freedom, true freedom, was theirs to claim. The war had taken much from them, but it had also given them the greatest gift, each other. And in a universe full of uncertainty, that was a treasure worth more than any reward, more than any medal, more than any title.